The Senate chamber was unusually quiet that morning. Cameras were poised, aides stood at the ready, and every senator's attention seemed fixed on one man, Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana. He rose slowly from his seat, a small stack of papers in his hand. His trademark half-smile was gone. In its place was something far heavier, resolve. The nation was watching, but no one quite expected what he was about to do. "Mr. President," Kennedy began, his southern drawl calm but firm, "I'd like to read aloud a bill recently introduced by my colleague, Representative Adam Schiff." The words rippled across the chamber. Schiff's proposal had stirred quiet controversy behind closed doors, rumors of overreach, whispers about hidden clauses, but few outside of Washington had read the fine print. That was about to change. Kennedy adjusted his glasses, glanced down at the text, and began to read. His voice carried clearly across the room. Section 1. The government shall establish a commission with authority to monitor, evaluate, and regulate misinformation across digital and broadcast platforms. A broken bar, a few heads lifted. Then he continued. Section 2. The commission may recommend penalties for individuals or organizations found to have disseminated misinformation, as determined by the commission's standards. A broken bar. A murmur spread through the chamber. The language was dense, bureaucratic, but chilling in its implication. Kennedy read every word slowly, deliberately, without commentary. His voice was steady, but the gravity in it was unmistakable. By the time he reached Section 5, via the Commission's decisions shall not be subject to judicial review, while the room had fallen completely silent. Even the air felt heavier. When he finished, Kennedy folded the papers neatly and looked up. "Now," he said quietly, "I don't know how my colleagues feel, but that sounds less like democracy and more like dictatorship wrapped in legalese." The silence broke into a low rumble. Some senators exchanged uneasy glances, others shifted in their seats. Schiff himself sat motionless, jaw tight, as Kennedy stepped forward, his eyes sweeping the chamber. "You see," Kennedy continued, "our founders didn't fight a revolution for comfort or control. They fought it for freedom, of the messy, unpredictable, sometimes downright uncomfortable kind. Freedom means you get to speak your mind, even if your government doesn't like what you say, especially then." He paused, letting the words hang in the air. "This bill doesn't protect the people from misinformation. It protects the government from accountability. And that, my friends, is a road we should never walk." The tension was palpable. Even the reporters in the press gallery seemed frozen, their pens hovering midair. Kennedy's voice softened, almost mournful now. "I've seen folks lose their jobs, their reputations, even their families over things they said online. Some of them were wrong, some weren't. But it's not Washington's job to decide which speech is pure enough to be heard. It's the people's job to decide what they believe. That's democracy." He looked down at the paper once more and then dropped it gently onto the desk. "If we silence one side today," he said, "we might just find ourselves silenced tomorrow." For a long moment, no one spoke, not Schiff, not the majority leader, not even the usual whispering staffers in the back rows. It was as if the entire Senate had collectively realized the weight of what they were about to vote on. Then, slowly, applause began, quiet at first, from a handful of senators on both sides of the aisle. Then it spread. Reporters scribbled furiously. Schiff's face was unreadable, but his eyes darted toward Kennedy, as if realizing that the Louisiana senator had done something few dared to do: speak truth plainly. After the session ended, Kennedy walked out into the bright sunlight on Capitol Hill. Reporters swarmed him, microphones thrust in his face. One young journalist managed to ask, "Senator, do you think you stopped the bill?" Kennedy smiled faintly. "I don't know," he said, "but I think I reminded some folks who they work for." That night, clips of Kennedy's speech went viral across the country. Some praised him as a defender of free speech, others called him dramatic or old-fashioned. But one thing was undeniably: his words had struck a nerve. Across America, ordinary citizens began reading the bill themselves, discussing it around dinner tables, in coffee shops, on social media. For once, politics wasn't about party, it was about principle. The next week, under mounting public pressure, Schiff's bill was quietly withdrawn before reaching a vote. When a reporter later asked Kennedy how he felt about the outcome, he said simply, The people read it. That's all I ever wanted. He turned away then, hands in his pockets, walking down the marble steps of the Capitol as the sun dipped low over Washington. There was no grand victory speech, no self-congratulation, and just the quiet dignity of a man who had done what he believed was right. In the end, it wasn't just a story about a senator reading a bill. It was a story about courage, about one man's willingness to speak plainly in a world drowning in spin, and a reminder that sometimes, all it takes to change the course of a nation of broken bar is to read the truth out loud.